welcome to Mirage. This is Bryan Aiello, and today we are going to be speculating on Harry Harrison. Joining me is Matthew Bin. And hey, how are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks.
Give you an opportunity to say something after I've introduced you.
Oh, shut up.
Tell me about Harry Harrison.
Well, Harry Harrison was, I don't think you consider him golden age science fiction, but he was really big in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Really influential writer on me. One of my first great science fiction fanboyisms, and that's why I suggested we chat about him.
Well, I was looking through his bibliography, and I saw Flash Gordon. Those are two words together that I cannot read without wanting to sing the Queen's song. I just can't do it. It's almost impossible. So that's what I was doing before we got onto this podcast. But yeah, he wrote Flash Gordon, 1958, 1964. I mean, that's pretty hardcore.
I don't think he was the original Flash Gordon. He was writing the newspaper script, I think. The newspaper comic.
Yeah, the first appearance is like 1934 or so.
Yeah.
He got it 20 years later, but still, I mean, it's nothing to snuff at. I mean, Flash Gordon is.
He was very well regarded. You know, he had a great career. Certainly was very much on the inside with the science fiction crowd. So I'm sure it was an uncontroversial pick to let him write it.
Where did you pick up your first Harrison novel?
So I was in England with my mom and my sister and brother. I was 13. Well, actually, I was 14, and I turned 14 while I was there. And my mom came from England. She has a lot of family there, so we were staying there for the summer. And one of the things I got for my birthday, my mom gave me a Harry Harrison book, The Stainless Steel Rat. Never heard of him before. I don't know. I thought I should have called my mom before this and found out why she gave me that book, if she even remembers. I suspect she went to the science fiction shelf and picked something that she thought, looked interesting or had a funny title or something like that. I had no idea what I was in for. So we got on the train. For my birthday, we were going to the Royal Museum of Natural History, which is definitely worth going to if you're in London. And we had about a 45-minute train ride, and I was absorbed with this book. I'd never had anything like it in my life. It was unreal how captivating it was from just the first page. And I went on to find everything I could in the whole library system at home. And then as I got older, I bought a bunch of his books. So The Stainless Steel Rat has been a huge, huge influence on me as a writer and as a reader.
Give us a gist. What's it about?
Okay, so it's Harry Harrison was a real. I think you'd see him as a shit disturber, as I don't know, you say class clown, but he's kind of trying to undermine everything, Mm-hmm. And so this is basically the superhero tale in reverse. The Stainless Steel Rat is a supervillain, and the idea is that as everything went from dirt and trees and so on to concrete, well, the only thing that's going to survive in concrete, you can't have a regular rat. You need a stainless steel rat to make it there. So that's how he characterized himself, the main character. And it starts out with him pulling some scheme, pulling some heist. And the first book is about him getting recruited into some law enforcement type of, I don't want to say superheroes, but this group of people fighting for law and order, but they recruit supervillains because supervillains are the ones who really know how things happen and how to make things go right. And so it's always him being on the edge of really wanting to be a villain, but also, working this sort of this role as kind of like a detective kind of thing. So they're fascinatingly entertaining books. They're just he's got a real sharp style. He's got like the main character, the dialogue is always snappy, and I kind of remember it as having very much the same effect on me as Douglas Adams and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, because it's that sort of funny and snappy and fast moving, So that's the Stainless Steel Rat books in a nutshell.
It's interesting because it was a second book too. It's a second published novel.
Yeah, it was a long series though, and he kind of rebooted it. I was working in a library in the late 80s, early 90s, and I saw there was a Stainless Steel Rat brand new book came in, and I was just about floored because I didn't know. I even knew as a kid reading in the 80s, these were already kind of dated. This future technology was already kind of on its way out.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but there's still I always kind of forgive that as a reader. I think that we're none of us are good enough future seekers to really know what's going to be what.
Right. I mean, I quote you all the time. Well, it was our last podcast, the podcast previous, the street light at the end of the block. Basically, that's as far as we can see. We can only guess what's going on beyond it.
Yeah. And I mean, my publisher calls science fiction our conversation with the future. But that I think is a good way of looking at it because, we're only one side of the conversation, right? So we can only know so much. We can only say so much.
I mean, you can look at these pictures on these covers. I mean, his idea of what year was the Stainless Rat set in?
Oh, it's set in like 3000 AD or something. It's set in the future. It's far enough that they actually don't really know where Earth is. They tell the date. They say the date in ODT, which is old dirt time, because they kind of forgot to call it. They call it dirt. This kind of thing. So there's all it's got that kind of humor to it, right? It's pretty loose, but it's not trying to be really erudite or anything. But it's always good like that. That's why I like his novels so much.
Can you imagine being able to write something that much? You're having fun with it.
Yeah.
What do I need to call it? I don't have Google. I have a typewriter in front of me, and I need to classify something. What do I call it? ODT. Why not?
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean that's it's also kind of amazing, isn't it? When you think of it as a writer, you have so many resources. These guys must have just been that much smarter than us. That's all you can think, eh?
I mean, I don't know. Like they had to have been at the library every single day.
No kidding.
Oh, I know. I'm like before we got on this this podcast, I was looking at the tabs open in my main Chrome box, and all of them are geared to the story I'm writing right now. It's like 12 of them. I can't close any of them.
Yeah.
I need every single one of them open, and I cannot imagine sitting at a typewriter.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do in the middle of a sentence? Oh, I need to find out what this is called. No, you embarrass yourself for the sake of history and just write it out, right? Just have balls and write it. Yeah. So the Stainless Steel Rat, and then it's a series.
Yeah.
Not just one book. How many are there?
It's something like 12 of them in the end, I think.
12. Huh.
Maybe a little less, but like I say, he wrote a bunch later on. He kind of rebooted it in the 80s and had a bunch more. But
well, he wrote one in 2010. Did he or did somebody else? It's hard to say.
He did.
It was him. Oh, interesting.
He had, and I didn't read the last couple. I read there was two in the late 80s, I think. Let me see, 85 and 87. The Stainless Steel Rat is Born, a Stainless Steel Rat, which was kind of a prequel. And then like these two were both kind of prequels before the Stainless Steel Rat, the original novel, where he's already established as a super criminal. Mm-hmm. And now Harry Harrison, one of the funny things about him is he was in the military and he hated it. And he kind of...
Well, you were in the military. I was in the military. Is there anything to love about the military?
There's things to like when you're younger, maybe. But he came out and basically, I think he had a chip on his shoulder about the military. Anybody who was connected with the military was automatically a buffoon, right? And so the Stainless Steel Rat gets drafted with him kind of at his best in terms of making fun of people and that military mindset. And it was, I remember that one specifically being a truly fantastic novel. Really enjoyed the later ones. Now the ones in the 90s and 2000s, I was not much of a science fiction reader for a while, so I haven't checked them out, but I do want to because his style really obviously fits for me.
So I mean, he's prolific enough to have written at least 2 a year, if not more, from 1960 all the way to 2002.
Yeah, and he's got. When you look at his bibliography, pretty much every year there's something. Some years there's 72. He published 4 novels in 1972.
That's crazy. And also this is on top of short fiction collections too, which he did every 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, the guy was writing all the time, nonstop, just putting ink down on paper.
Yeah.
And I mean, what are we talking here? 2002. That's 42 years worth of fiction. I mean, that's almost 100 novels. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Where did he end up in terms of? I mean, you called him not one of the greats.
Well, he was a little younger than like Asimov and those guys. So in that pantheon, he never really hit that level, you know. And he wasn't one who was going to win all the awards, but he sold tons. And he like eh, he was, I think, probably one of these guys who was under the radar that everybody at the time his novels were coming out was reading him, but he doesn't kind of hit that level. And you know, that's, I realize that a lot of things that are my preferences are not for everybody, right? But he had such a big career and was so popular. Um, the fact that he didn't win big awards and that kind of thing, it never bothered me, you know. And he won some sort of uh, you know, lifetime achievement awards kind of thing, which I think says, you know, how influential he was without throwing out a blockbuster like the Foundation trilogy.
If you think about it, in 1980 something, wherever your mom hooked you up with this book, he had already written like 20 novels. When your mom reached her hand into the shelf to pull out something for you, she had a really big percentage chance of grabbing a Harrison novel.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's more like 30, 40 books by that time.
Right? Isn't that crazy? I mean,
It is.
there is a theory you have to write a lot. You have to get yourself on the shelf over and over and over again and not be shy. And that's what this guy did. And at the end of the day, he inspired other people to write.
Yeah, and I mean, I can definitely pick him as one of the people who inspired me. And the opening, we talked about my novel Brendan's Way, and the opening of that novel was directly inspired as a reaction to Harry Harrison, because in that opening, the main character. Now, one of the things that Harry Harrison, I mean, he wasn't afraid to just embrace tropes that go on in science fiction. So he had the smartest, slickest main character, and his tempered. He's kind of overconfident and stuff as well. But he also had the most beautiful wife. You know, she was the most, and she's equally evil and criminal as he is. And I always kind of noticed that, yeah, all the science fiction heroes, for whatever reason, have the most beautiful wives. So I started out Brendan's Way with him admiring his wife's butt as she's walking behind her onto the spaceship where they're going to spend the entire novel. And I tried to undermine that because she wasn't really his wife and he'd never met her before that, like an hour before. And so I was kind of playing off of that trope. But Harry Harrison was very much in my mind as I wrote that first scene of Brendan's Way. And that first scene has stayed the first scene. You know, that was definitely where my mind was when I started that book. So I know that he remains a big influence on me. I know that he was that enveloping as a young reader, as a kid who was 14 years old and older, that he doesn't leave my head, you know, as I'm writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're writing a sequel to Brandon's Way right now, right? Or have you already finished that?
I'm working on a second novel in the same universe, not really a sequel, more of a prequel, really. But also, I'm not done. It's been a bit stalled. Still working on it, working hard. But
what's it look like? How long do you got?
Well, I figure I have about 20,000 words to write, but I've got about 50,000 words to rewrite. I got a lot of work going back. I'm at the point where I'm realizing things aren't coming together, so I got to go back and do some retooling all the way through. But I've given it to my publisher what I have. He's happy with it. He says, "Go ahead, just finish it," and hopefully we'll find a shelf for it next year.
Well, that's the best part, right? With your publisher, you'll be working with an editor, and maybe, you know, getting through it will be not too hard.
Yeah. No, and that's true. And that's kind of, it's great to have somebody who says, well, whatever you write, we're fine with it. You know, we'll take it. We want to buy it. You know, sight unseen, I was getting that from, which I'm, you know, thrilled to have that kind of relationship with them.
Right.
And also I have somebody I can go to and say, I don't think this is working. What do you think? You know, I can whine at somebody. It's really useful to have somebody.
Well, that's what we have wives, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. You need somebody who will deal with this specific kind of whining in the right way.
my wife is universally, she just accepts all my whining.
Yeah. I mean, If you weren't married for that, you really missed out. But no, I agree. But like I say, I mean, it's why I hang around with writers. They get the whining in a different way, right?
Yeah, totally. I get that completely. I mean, but you're never satisfied, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think, going back to Harrison, one of the things that he kind of exhibits is that, don't try to be satisfied, because the name of the game is to tell stories.
Yeah, that's another thing about him. I was a huge fan of the Stainless Steel Rat series. I never got into a lot of his other things, and I don't know if I tried them when I was maybe a little younger and they weren't going to grab me the same way. But like he had one called West of Eden, and then it was Winter in Eden, Return of Eden, and those were when I was working in this library. Couldn't get into them, didn't have any idea of why they were interesting. There's one he did called it was called the To the Stars trilogy. It was Homeworld, Wheel World, and Star World. Could not get into them, had no idea what I was reading. And he wrote a lot of different stuff. Oh, there's another series called Bill the Galactic Hero, which again was a bit of a satire on science fiction. But I read a couple of those, but they weren't as captivating as Stainless Steel Rat was. And there's one that I have never been able to determine what the name of the book was. And I've gone through his bibliography multiple times. But it was a time travel book. It was about it was set in, I forget, some Earth period where they were traveling back and forth, and it was really well done, like a really good time travel adventure book. But I've never been able to locate it, and I'd love to read it again because it was that good.
Oh, it's frustrating. Yeah. I bet if you went on to Reddit books or whatever,
tip of my tongue or something, yeah.
Man, I found a whole series called Casca. What is it called? Casca the Barbarian. It drove me crazy my entire life from when I was a kid. Have you heard of these books?
No.
They're crazy. It's about a centurion who was there during the crucifixion of Christ. He's the one who stabbed the Christ figure in the side and then drank some of his blood or something along those lines. And maybe not even that bad. Maybe it was he was cursed by God to live forever as a soldier. So every single book is basically about him being a soldier in various parts of history.
That sounds amazing.
They're trash, complete trash. But they're trash in that way that you just can't stop reading them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now they're available, only used. The guy, Barry Sadler, is a magnificent story all on his own. He wrote that Green Beret song.
Really?
Yeah, that's him. You could look up Green Beret song, I guess, and find a video of him singing it on TV. That's Barry Sadler. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam, stepped on a punji stick, one of those feces covered sticks in the ground or whatever, and had to leave the military. But he wrote these novels, man. He ended up killing a country music star and then dying himself. He was assassinated in Panama. It was like, yeah, but these books still come out occasionally, and they're like the gift that keeps on giving. They're just horribly great. Highly recommend them. Why did I mention them? Oh, because I don't know. Why did I mention it?
The time travel book. I think that was.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in terms of time travel, it's just. Are your characters bad? Like in terms of like the scales, are they good versus bad? Are they kind of going in the direction of not good? In Brandon's way.
Oh, they're bad guys. They're revolutionaries. They're the rebels.
And you pulled that directly from Harrison.
I think I'm sure that the fact that Harrison
or inspired by him anyway.
Yeah, his attitude I think definitely meshed with mine. I know when I was in the military, and this was in the early 90s, so as I was in the reserves, the Russian Empire was collapsing all around us, and we didn't really know whether we were going to be in the reserves the whole time, and right. I was of the type that I was in the artillery, so we always had trailers and guns and stuff we were towing, and we were always putting names on them. It was always like Che Guevara, Fidel. Everything was named after a communist.
Revolutionaries.
Yeah. That was the kind of I was the kind of soldier who was talking back and yes, I'll do the laps, I'll do the push-ups, whatever. But I wasn't satisfied to just. I had to I had to act out a little bit, and I don't know whether that's Harrison's kind of influence, or if I liked him so much because he knew the wave. I was on the wavelength with him, you know.
That kind of answers my question. I think I was going to ask what makes his characters bad. I mean, it's a matter of perspective, isn't it? But he's writing it from the perspective is United States Army, and this character is in the United States Army trying to mess with the United States Army.
Yeah. And I mean, his the stainless steel rat, he's one of these chaotic good characters. He has no interest in laws, in that kind of thing, but he's a decent guy. He would never steal from somebody who, you know, wasn't insured, kind of thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's always like he's going after banks, he's going after corporations, and so you never feel. And he wouldn't kill anybody. And one of the big things in the first book is his future wife does kill somebody in cold blood, and he's like horrified. Like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We might be supervillains, but we're not assholes. You know, the kind of
This is a stainless steel rat, or your character? Okay.
It's a stainless steel rat, and my character's too dumb to. Brendan's not smart enough to be evil.
Could you see yourself writing like this?
I would
novel
love
after novel after novel.
Listen, if I could hit the vein of comedy that he hits, if I could do that reliably and long term, I would do it. I would definitely do it. No question about it. And you know, right now, the publishing industry is such that having a good series where it's, you know, like the Casca series that you're talking about, having a series that you can pump them out and they're just kind of throwaway novels, but they're easy to consume, that's gold. You know, if you can hit something like that these days, that's what Amazon rewards. So I'd do it in a heartbeat.
No, that's what I hear, right? I mean, the more you publish on Amazon, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, a bigger footprint.
I mean, I would love to write this much, just a new novel, a new story.
Oh,
something
I know.
Different.
Yeah. And that's what, again, I'm really impressed as I go through his catalog, what I've read of his. And I mean, I've mostly read the Stainless Steel Rat, but he has so much. There's so many different series and so many different ways of writing, and mostly science fiction, but it's, you know, it's not just sort of one thing over and over. It's many things over and over, maybe.
Yeah, how many series did he end up writing? Does it say in here?
I don't know how many series. I would probably put it like at least a dozen, and then a bunch of one-offs. You know, it's just there's just tons.
He's a World War II vet.
Yeah, and but he was an instructor, I think, not on the. I don't know even if he went overseas.
Well, it says in this one little line that he was. It doesn't say.
Yeah, and I just to point out, I don't denigrate anybody who serves in wartime and doesn't go overseas. That's not to say that they're worth any less as a veteran or as a somebody who served. But
he worked with computers in the 1940s. I mean, there's no war, department for that. You'd have to stay in the Bureau for that, I would think.
Yeah.
It's an interesting job for a future science fiction writer, though.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But, 1940 computer. I mean, that was like a whole building, I imagine.
Yeah. They're gymnasium sized.
So where do you go from this guy? I mean, not that. Let's talk about the politics of the actual writing itself, because we talked about social science fiction in a couple of podcasts ago. Mm-hmm. Would you classify him in a writing movement of the era? I mean, 1960s, 1950s, post World War II.
That's a really good question. I don't know if he's not easy to classify because he's not
satire, I guess, right? I mean,
exactly. He's too much having fun poking holes to really have a politics. I don't really think he was. I don't know if he would have said he had a political bent or a political message. Maybe in a more general sense, like I said, that sort of questioning the gadfly kind of thing, right? Being the one to question authority, to annoy authority, but not so much. I think I never got a political message from anything I read of his.
I wonder if he was writing about sabotage, right? I mean, taking things out from the inside.
Yeah, but again, he was never about bring the whole system down, and he was never certainly about like it was always sort of an ethical way of being a criminal. You know, and
I
that's
mean,
why.
look at like Flash Gordon. I mean, he was writing that before he became popular, at
Yeah,
least 3 years anyway, right?
yeah,
I wonder if that influenced his own writing. I mean, that's a pretty important science fiction type of, what do you call it, series, and he took that over 20
yeah,
years into the run and
yeah.
wrote on it for 6 years.
I'm sure that, and that was either he was already in that mode, or that mode put him in the mode of the swashbuckling kind of adventure story. And
Swashbuckling, yeah.
yeah, and that's where I definitely call him that. And when I think about what Harrison was after, like it was about the adventure, about the fun. Grab the reader by the collar and drag him along through this story. And I mean, that's Flash Gordon, right? That's all the Flash Gordon serials back in the day, and the ongoing comic. It was always, you know uh, uh, fun time adventure, hit the ground running and run like hell with it, kind of thing. So he was very much in that mode. Everything that I read, it starts with a bang and doesn't stop, kind of thing.
Isn't swashbuckling kind of another word for pirates, though? And wasn't he kind of against a force that was already in power, the Flash Gordon character?
I'm not a huge
I mean, I've seen that movie many times, but it's so bad, I just have it playing in the background. When I was a kid, I loved it, but it's not the same, and I've
yeah, I
not
don't
been
know.
able to watch it as an adult.
I think swashbuckling was the swashbuckler was more of like an adventurer. So pirates fit that mold more than that mold was about pirates. I think it predates pirates by quite a bit, but it was more like the big, larger than life sword wielding kind of guy was where that came from. So I think pirates, it's a bigger idea than pirates, and I think that science fiction definitely, there's a term for it in science fiction. Um, I've heard it recently, something like lightsaber buckler or something like that. But
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's a sword and laser, or yeah, isn't it sword and laser or something like that?
yeah, something like that. But that's the kind of like it's Harrison was definitely in that mode. I don't know that. I think if you had to ascribe a social ethic to Harrison, it would be that sort of don't give in just because it's authority. Authority doesn't matter. Do what you need to do. That kind of mindset. Very individualistic, very American, I think. Um, I wouldn't put it at more than that. I don't think you could get into. I don't think he had time or interest in those social systems like governments to try to take them down. It was more like, how do I work around them so I get what I want, or I do what I need to do.
He had to have been a smart guy too. I mean, to have
Oh,
the MOS that he had in the army, working with computers.
yeah. Well, like we were saying before, these dudes were writing on typewriters, and what they came up with, with a dictionary, maybe an encyclopedia available to them. I tell you, reading these guys, I often feel like an idiot. So
Yeah, I was thinking about this on my way to drop my kids off the other day. They used a lot of cutting and pasting themselves. You know what I mean? They would type it out on a clean sheet of paper, cut it
yeah,
out, and like glue it on top of what they messed up. And
yeah,
then somebody else would like type it after them. They would come and rewrite the entire thing.
yeah,
In 2002, he lost his wife,
yeah,
and he didn't write for 8 years, and then died himself
yeah.
after the last novel he wrote, which was Stainless
The-
Steel Rat one.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I don't know the story. That I should check out that book, because I don't know the story of that book or where it came from. But it's kind of interesting that it came right at the end of his life.
yeah, about 2 years before he died, and 8 years after his wife died,
Yeah.
which was meaningful to him because he stopped writing. Right? I mean, 2002, there were no more novels coming out.
Well, they've been together for decades, right?
Fif- yeah, 51,
Yeah.
54 actually.
Yeah. So almost 50 years.
Yeah. He was married before that, divorced 3 years into the marriage. He has 2 kids. I wonder if they're still alive.
Good question.
I wonder who has the rights to his library.
That's a great question, because I don't know anything about, like, he wasn't like academic enough to be the kind of guy, I think, that would have his papers go somewhere, to a university or something.
He wrote so much too, and it's unfortunate because he was so popular in terms of you were able to find him randomly and
Yeah.
introduce him to people, including myself. Was anything ever made into a movie? Was he on TV at all?
Well, actually, one of his books called Make Room, Make Room was the basis, not the direct, like it wasn't a direct adaptation, but that was the basis for Soylent Green.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea that the sort of post-war idea that there just isn't room for everybody. What are we going to do about this? That kind of creeping dread was definitely something. Well, obviously, he was sort of getting into, but also the public in general. So yeah, it was the basis of it. I understand this. The I haven't read the book. I don't. Maybe I did read the book. My library had a lot of pulp science fiction. I read a lot of it when I was about 13 to 18. But I understand the book and the movie are completely different, except for that central sort of theme. But
It's human.
I don't think he. I don't think any of them were dramatized. And I mean, I would watch the hell out of a Stainless Steel Rat series. It's
Right.
so filmable, you know. You have to update the technology, as I said, but other than that, it's like it would be like I don't know, like one of these uh, FX shows or something like that. You know, it really seems to me like these would be gold for a TV adaptation. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about with TV. So
Oh, it's interesting. I'm on his website right now, and there is a what's happening with the Stainless Steel Rat movie question.
oh, really?
Yeah, and it says right now we honestly don't know. So somebody must be running his estate. Somebody's
Yeah,
running this website at
yeah,
least.
yeah.
They don't know, and basically all they do know is that several drafts of the screenplay have been written. That's about it.
Huh. Well, I imagine somebody would have optioned it at some point, but yeah, I don't know. I like I say, if I had known of a Harry Harrison book being made into a movie, I'd be at the theater front of the line, you know, because he was that big for me, you know, as an author. It was if I came across a Harry Harrison book at the library, I'd check it out. If I came across it at the bookstore, I'd write down the title and go to the library and see if I could get it. I didn't have any money for books as a kid, but you know.
Yeah, right. Me, I was a total library kid as well. What does the word "kaggle" mean? Kaggle? Kaggle.
I
You don't
don't.
know either. It's randomly the third question from the bottom on his query list. And I guess it's Cornish for cow shit. So random stuff from the Harrison website. Why is it the most common question you receive? That's a question I want to know. That's what it says. Amazingly, this is among the most common questions we receive. So I don't know. It's very interesting. Death World, you didn't read those?
No, no, I just another of those series that I knew of,
Huh.
couldn't get into.
This
I
is the,
I
they look
can't.
like they're Russian or something. Was he a Russian
No,
speaking person? No? Huh. Interesting. Crazy covers, too.
yeah, he
I
was
guess he's a. Go ahead.
co-writing with a Russian author for some of those, I guess.
As in the translations?
Oh, looks like he was like co-writing.
It's
Like,
interesting because there's a bunch of covers written in acrylic
yeah,
on his website. And the covers are kind of garish. I can't get them to open up much bigger than tiny.
they are
So
pretty wild.
I want to know who's running this website. It's
Good
probably not
question.
going to tell me though, huh?
Probably not. But I guess his estate paid for a webmaster.
It has to, but they are selling they're selling the rights to adaptations of his work. If you look
Yeah.
in the queries, you could actually get in touch with the person who runs this thing. There's a contact right here. So they receive a lot of requests from people wishing to obtain adaptation rights to his books and stories. The following books are currently already optioned. All of the Stainless Steel Rat books are optioned at a movie studio. Death World, Rebel in Time. Rebel in Time. Could that be the book that you were looking for?
Good question.
There's a rebel soldier on the front of it,
Hmm.
and he's got a horse by him.
I think that might be alternate history.
Seems like it would be too.
Yeah.
That or time travel. I mean, what a horrible place to go back in time, though. Antebellum South. The Antebellum South. Yeah, I lost his website. And the last one was the Technicolor Time Machine. Oh,
Oh,
is that the one that you're looking for?
I wonder. That sounds really familiar.
It's a time travel story with comedic elements, which satirizes Hollywood, and it first appeared in analog science fiction.
I think this is the one.
Interesting.
How
Well,
about that?
you dig deep enough, you find everything.
Yeah. Because I spent some time looking at the. Oh, that's exactly it. That's right. It was a movie director who was going to get his shots by going to the actual events instead of.
What a great idea!
Yeah.
Oh my god, I hate writers so much.
I know.
Anybody who comes up with an idea that I want to write before I have the idea, I hate them.
Well,
And
clearly,
that is a good idea.
but people would, if you rewrote this one, people wouldn't be able to find the original anyway, because I couldn't.
Well, my luck, I'll write the damn thing, and next thing I know, there's a trailer on TV with the exact story that I'm just written out. It's a good idea though. Going to the actual events.
Yeah.
I think it is. And then you go to the actual event and just horrible stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
What's the story about?
Now that I remember it, I can't remember what they're trying to do with the movie, but it all had to do with like they're going to jump around in time, pick up these. It's like a guy who's he was washed up or was failed as it had a failed career and was trying to this is his cheat code to make himself a grand epic and get back in kind of thing.
It's very interesting, and that's an idea, right? I mean, in terms of Harry, or is it Harrison?
Yeah.
He didn't really wait for that big book. He just kept writing and writing and writing.
No
You know what I
kidding.
mean? The guy's like, oh, I got to come up with the greatest idea in the world, and that'll make me famous. But this dude's like, no, let's churn, baby. And he
Yeah.
churns like novel
Yeah.
after novel out.
And that's another thing I really like about him as a writer. Like I have a lot of respect for that. You don't sitting on an idea for all your life. Ideas really are cheap. They're good.
Yeah.
They're really useful. Wish I had more of them, but they are cheap. And churn out the novel and get the next one going. Like that's how you find what's going to work. And I think for any writer, like that's really good advice. You want to know what you do with that book you've just finished writing? Put it aside. Write the next one. Then you'll know.
No,
Really good.
you got to get in other people's eyes somehow. That's really, I mean, you write it and then you sell it, right? And you keep writing the next one while you're trying to sell the first one.
But you can't sit there and sell if you're not writing. And I think it's far more important to write the next book and write a different book, write a better book, don't. I've always in the last few years I've been trying to write stuff that I'm afraid to write. Stuff that I'm not really confident that I'd be able to do. So
man, that's totally where I'm at too. The last couple of years, I have been writing nothing but spec fiction.
Right.
And I call it spec fiction because that's what it is. And it's not some literary fiction disguised as magical realism or something along those lines. I'm writing about spaceships and dragons, and I don't really care because I like that stuff.
Well, I don't know if I had mentioned previously, but I wrote a novel marathon for 3 years where they took a long weekend. You had 72 hours to write a novel. And so I did it 3 times. And the 3 novels I wrote, like one was a fictionalized version of my time in a punk band. The next one was a horror novel, and horror is something I've never even wanted to read, much less write.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one was a Cold War thriller, caper kind of thing. And the reason I wrote those was because those were ideas that I wasn't sure I could do. So this was going to be a high pressure situation and force myself to do it. My current book I'm writing, one of the point of view characters is a 15-year-old girl, which I've never had a female point of view character for a novel length work before. And, doing a 15-year-old girl is also kind of, a challenge, right, for me. So I respect artists who are willing to get out of their comfort zone. As a reader, we're always wanting we want to recreate that joy of finding them the first time. So we want to read the same thing over and over.
Well, as a reader, it doesn't really matter to us, does it? We just want a good story. And
That's
if you're an author who, time and time again provides that good story, we'll love you. But if you give us a crap story, we'll just stop reading your dumb book and we'll look for another one, right? I mean, that's us as a reader. As a writer, yeah, we put a lot of effort into that, and there's gems and stuff, and there's emotions, and we love that story. But as a reader, we don't care if we're not into it. We want it to hook us, don't
yeah.
we?
Yeah, but the reading public would be like, give us. When they like something, it's give us more of that thing, right? Nobody's going to Harry Potter and finding out he's got a laser, right? They're not going to be happy with that. But
I think J.K. Rowling could handle that, though.
well, yeah, she's kind of good.
She's chops. She
Uh,
can handle it.
yeah, but
Next thing you know, Harry Potter's in space, and
as a writer, it would be easy, I think, to stay and just do that same thing over and over again. But guys like Harrison are like, okay, well, now I'm writing a time travel one. All right, now I'm writing alternate history. And he's a good enough storyteller to work it, I guess.
do you think he had a group of people that he worked with?
I don't know what the publishing business was like at that time, but I think you probably had more of that support around him one way or another. Yeah.
Like I think his wife definitely was involved in his career. I mean, from the very beginning. What was it? 1958 was when they got married.
Before
54 they got married. I mean, I don't know. 58 he got his job at Flash Gordon. Something happened those 4 years, and I definitely lost my website and all the information I was looking at. Where are you? There, oh, there it is. Harry Harrison. Yeah, 54, and he got the job at 58. So potentially 3 years and some change, potentially between marriage and getting that decent step up. And he was already pretty old at that point too. He was 30.
yeah, his first book, he was 50,
Three?
25 or something when he published his first one, 26 maybe.
This is for 60, 35, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
I
that's
mean,
right.
that's not terribly old. I mean,
Oh,
right on target, I would imagine,
yeah,
usually.
I'd say so.
I mean, where do you think he's going to land? Do you think history is going to remember Harry Harrison, or do
That's,
you think he?
I'm skeptical that they will. There's people like me who will, when people say, um, "Hey, what's a fun science fiction read?" I always say, "Stainless Steel Rat. Check it out. It's totally worth it."
And then
I,
they never come back to you and ask for anything because it's such a dated piece of fiction,
I, I,
right?
I always add that caveat actually that you'll find it has a certain 60, 70 sensibility, but totally worth it anyway because it is snappy writing. Like that writing is still I find exciting. He's still the kind of writer where you're enjoying yourself. It's a fun ride to read him. So
So what does he do better? Is it just the character, or is it the plot,
the
or
character.
is it everything in between?
It's a character. I think that's the where it really comes from is that he's got these characters that talk in a certain way, that act in a certain way, and that just like the plot is hanging on for dear life as the characters running through the world. He's that kind of writer.
Magically, right?
Yeah,
Fixing problems as they pop up.
yeah,
And I'm thinking of Lee Childs. I'm thinking of people who write these kind of same type of book over and over again. It is
yeah.
big. I mean, I would love to be able to write characters like that because I know what it is. That is very yummy to read.
Yeah, and it's not even like he's not Superman. He's really good, but all the time he's getting caught by police. He's getting his ass beat up. Things fail all the time. So he's kind of more like he's like a Han Solo character is where I put him. He's a scoundrel, and he's charming, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe he's the best pilot in the world or in the galaxy. Maybe his hyperdrive won't start. He's that kind of character. He's in that trope for sure. And
What kind of universe is it? Is it our solar system or someplace else?
yeah, it's
Oh,
planet.
3,000 years in the future, we don't really know. Earth is gone. They have
Yeah,
old dirt technology. No, old dirt,
old dirt time.
old dirt time.
When they say it's 3,000 ODT. Yeah,
It's crazy. So Earth is not there. They're out of the solar system. They're someplace else.
yeah, it's in the galaxy and it's planet to planet. There's interplanetary transport and that kind of stuff. I don't remember how they resolved the faster than light thing. Maybe they just kind of hand waved over it the way I do. But yeah, it has a lot of latitude. You know, there'll be this planet that has all the jungles and that kind of thing. But I think that was just to give himself a lot of opportunities for plots. But it's very high tech world.
99.9% of the space flight. That's what I do. And then also make wormholes.
Yeah, yeah, wormholes are the best, man.
Just had a realization the other day. Do you know what a white hole is?
I don't.
Supposedly it's the other side of a black hole.
Oh,
So the black hole is the sucker and the white hole is what you exit out of. And they think that, well, I don't know who they are, but somebody I think that I read in an article once said that the whole system might be a wormhole. I think it's fascinating to be able to create something like that
yeah.
in fiction anyway, because I don't think it's going to be happening in real life anytime soon.
Well, I'm friends with a theoretical physicist, and I'm sure he must. I'll ask him next time I see him about white holes because he's the kind of guy who there's a theorem named after him. You know, this kind of fella. So,
oh, really? Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So there are people out there figuring this stuff out. Thank goodness.
Is he a reader of this 1960s, 1950s style science fiction?
I'm going to guess he's not.
He's not. He likes the real stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He's interested. He's as you would probably imagine, as a theoretical physicist, he's about the nerdiest guy I know.
Yeah, I love it. I wish I was that nerdy. I don't know if you come close.
No kidding.
I mean, it's really fascinating to kind of think about real science versus what Harry Harrison is kind of writing about.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays we have like Andy Weir writing, The Martian and Artemis, and Stevenson writing. Is it Stevenson who wrote 70 Years? I mean, these are really cool, hard science fiction books.
Yeah.
And I love hard fiction, hard science fiction. I think it's really interesting to read something well written like that. It's hard to delve into this. I mean, we would consider this fantasy now, wouldn't he? Not even science fiction anymore.
No, I mean Harrison is definitely soft science fiction. He's technological universe and that kind of thing. There's no question it's in the future, but yeah, for sure he's not hard sci-fi, anything but.
But you would just call it soft science fiction and not even put it in fantasy at all?
No, no, there's nothing fantastic about it. There's nothing.
Well, the tech, right? I mean, the tech
Yeah,
is
but it's high tech.
fantastic.
It's not. There's no magic. Nothing that isn't objective scientific reality. So, um, I tend towards the same kind of thing. I'm not knowledgeable enough or smart enough. I wanted to go into engineering, didn't have the marks. Switched to English. That's where I'm at. But I could never write the hard sci-fi. I don't have the mind for it. I don't have that, and I honestly don't have the energy for it. I don't care enough to spend that kind of time on making it good. Hard sci-fi fans are not going to enjoy my writing. Hard sci-fi fans probably aren't going to enjoy Harrison's writing. That's okay. I get why people are into hard sci-fi. I read it too, and it can be really good. But for me. I'm whether I'm a student of Harry Harrison or just happen to be the same. I'm definitely in the soft end of the spectrum.
You know what? I don't even have a way to answer that honestly. Are you a hard science fiction writer or not? I got my degree in English as well, but I have no technical expertise. But I do strive for some authenticity to the science aspects of my stories.
Sure.
Try to back it up with stuff, but it doesn't make it hard science fiction, I don't think.
It's if you I think it's if you have a way of making it scientifically plausible that makes it hard sci-fi. If you're only doing things where you can show a valid scientific I want to say reason or reasoning for it, then you could say it's hard sci-fi. Is how I understand the genre. But I certainly hand waved like crazy over Fast and Light Travel when it came to Brennan's Way, and I don't intend to stop that anytime soon.
Maybe they basically just enter the coordinates and hit a button and off they go.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, why waste time describing how to make an omelet when everybody knows what an omelet tastes like?
Well, that's how I see it. I know some people who reject any Fast and Light Travel that isn't like as realistic as Joe Haldeman or somebody like that. Or if you don't have like a clear read, like Star Wars doesn't pass the test for most people who are into
No,
art. Now, Star Wars is
very, very, very bad in terms of
yeah,
the science.
yeah, that really is a fantasy story in space, sword and sorcery in space. But which I don't care. I still enjoy Star Wars. But I guess
Some people consider Star Trek fantasy as well.
I went to a lecture by I don't know if you're familiar with the author. How's his name go to my head? This Canadian science fiction author. He's won the Hugo. He's won the Nebula. Um, Robert J. Sawyer is the name. And he had a long, long rant about how Star Wars is nonsense. It's not science fiction. Star Trek is the real science fiction. So he's a hard sci-fi kind of guy. So I'm very much I take my cue from him. So I don't know if he's right or
Did I misspeak? I meant Star Trek. Some people consider Star Trek fantasy,
I don't
science
know.
fantasy.
Yeah, to me that seems well. I guess there's not a hell of a lot of science to warp drive and whatnot. But
No, I mean they make up stuff right in the moment. They say, well, this collection of words, this scientific babble will make it go faster or work better or fix the problem that we're having, and it
yeah,
really isn't based on anything.
yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah,
What is it called? Phil Baltingham or something like that? A made-up element that makes everything go.
right,
That's
right.
basically that's basically Star Trek.
Yeah, I guess
And
it is.
Star Wars doesn't care. I mean, they basically say it works and we're going to use it, and there you go.
Oh,
And we got swords.
you're too busy being chased by the Empire to care about the science. I think
Right.
Star
It
Wars.
works now. If it doesn't work later, we'll just get another ship.
Yeah,
I love stuff like this type of science fiction. It's too bad we take ourselves too seriously.
yeah.
I would love to see stuff like this still being written. Maybe it still is. Do you see stuff like this being written nowadays?
I keep hearing about, I'll hear about a series that's fun and funny, and I've not yet found anything that hits me as funny as this. Like I say, this was the funniest stuff I'd ever read until I got to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
So it's on par with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
For me, it
Wow.
absolutely is. And I'll tell you another thing. I found that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy didn't age as well as I felt Stainless Steel Rat did.
Well, isn't that the type of book that you read the first time and you buy every single, you know, the next book in the series,
Yeah.
and you cannot go back and reread them because the surprise element is gone. The joke has been, you know what the punchline is.
Yeah, the joy is of the experience is now you can never have it again. That's right.
I mean, your mom can take your Christmas presents, rewrap them, put them under the tree. You're not going to have the same experience opening them up again.
Yeah.
That's what Douglas Adams was a giant Christmas present. And then while you can open that up back up again. I can't wait to introduce him to my children, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Now I found the Dirk Gently series very rereadable, but not.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that existed until the television series came out.
Oh, and the
Yeah.
television doesn't come close to how good the books are.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Is it still on, or did it get canceled?
I don't know. My wife's a big fan of it. I've watched it only here and there. I think it's still going. I think they have another season coming.
Huh. I'm gonna have to. I mean, I should probably read the books. I'm embarrassed I didn't even know that
But
was a series.
like I say, the books. This is like Dirk Gently fanfic, the TV series. The books are 100% different, but very, very much worth reading.
I
Really
probably
is.
skipped over it. I mean, I loved Hitchhiker's Guide so much. I probably just said, "Where are the books at?"
Yeah, yeah.
Poor guy died working out too. I keep telling my wife that. I'm like, that's why I'm not working out.
No, I mean, yeah, no, yeah,
I'm saving my own life.
yeah. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Huh? I'll be here forever now. My grandmother did not do anything for like the last 40 years of her life, but sit by her window and read a Bible. And she lived to like 99 years old. So I'm like, that doesn't work. My wife doesn't believe anything I say when it comes to not exercising. So, what do we have left to say about Harry Harrison?
Well, I I really think that people should. I wish people were giving him a try because it's the kind of fiction that I feel we need. It's brash. It's fun. It's funny. We don't see enough of this. We're too damn serious, I guess, about what we're writing. And I need this as a reminder to be much more human about what I write. So that's where I see that's the importance of Harry Harrison to me, is the reminder of humanity, that we're telling stories for people. We're trying to do, making people smile is not a bad thing.
And you know what? It's not going to last either. I mean, the likelihood that we're going to be at Shakespeare, I don't even know what the percentage on that is.
Yeah,
It's not. It's astronomically not going to happen.
Oh, really? I was going to say 50-50, but okay.
Well, for you, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, you don't have many Shakespeares, even in history. Mark Twain will probably live for a really long time.
Yeah,
Maybe Asimov, he's kind of dying off too.
that's true. It's
I
true.
mean, they're not, you date yourself when you write this stuff, because the next generation, the people coming up right behind you, are going to try and beat you every single time.
That's right. That's right.
Because you have to feed that beast of satisfaction. I mean, they're looking for the next book. Give me the next book. Is it your book? And I don't know. It's interesting.
But that's all the more reason to make somebody shout out unexpectedly with laughter, make them read the next page. That's I think our job as an author, and Harrison is one of those guys that just does it really well.
But that's the thing, though, too. I mean, it must have come naturally for him, because I mean, I don't know. That's another thing about writing, is it is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it is.
Yeah.
And here's a guy, I mean, we know him successfully in 1960 publishing his first novel.
Yeah.
And then from there publishing 40, 50, 80, whatever that was, one or two a year for the remainder of his life.
Mm-hmm.
But what we don't see is, the years before that, where, he was just writing stories out and they were going nowhere.
That's right.
It's not until he got directed, pointed in the right place, and just started producing and producing and producing.
Yeah.
We know him, and we don't know him as the person who wasn't producing the right stuff.
That's right. That's right. But I think learning from what he did produce is really useful as a writer.
Well, I wanted to also add or ask, Lovecraft came back.
Mm-hmm.
Can this guy come back?
It's, I think if people came across him, there's a good chance he'd be read, but maybe he's of an era that won't come back, but I'm doing my little bit.
I mean, how do you curate something like that for somebody? I mean, would you make a Harry Harrison website? I mean, every year, millions of more books are published, right? I mean, there's just a constant stream of books burying old stories that'll never be read, but they obviously have copyright on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unfortunate that you could not go back into his anthologies and start ripping stories out and going, here, World Wide Web, enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be, it would be nice, but also obviously somebody's taking care of his estate. So I don't know, maybe the answer is that we take what inspires us and take it forward. And that's what I'm,
right.
That's my job as a fan of his.
Yeah, it's true. You need to start writing more books, though, my friend.
Well, also my plan is to become huge and big and famous, and then I can tell people, oh, you know who you should be reading? Harry Harrison. That'll spike the sales.
What do you mean?
Well,
I miss something.
I got to be that big and influential, but as soon as I am.
As soon as you're famous, you'll be telling people.
Yeah.
But no, don't read my books. Read Harry Harrison.
Listen, that's at the end of my book. They can read my book first.
Yo, I like the idea of Harry Harrison. He looks so familiar. He looks like an actor, but he's never been in any films that I've seen. So, no. So, I mean, this has been a great conversation. Can you think of anything else that we need to mention about Mr. Harrison before we sign off?
No, just go get him. Go out there and check him out. He's worth it.